Hello, here I am. I'm here. Hello. So today we're doing chapter 9 of the Batman Rise of Sin Tzu novelization. We're getting really close to the end. I think it's what, 14? Yeah, it's 14 chapters. We're on chapter 9 today, talking about Batgirl Barbara Gordon. Last time we had a focus on her dad, Jim Gordon, and there was a lot of timeline stuff that didn't seem to be working out. I built a whole timeline document of exactly what this book has been saying the timeline is, and a lot of it just doesn't seem to work out. But, you know, it's still worthwhile to try to get through the rest of the book, see if maybe everything's just a paradox. Let's see. What do we got? So we're going to be going over chapter 9, doing the canonicity, timing, spreadsheet, notes, and all that stuff. So, you know, let's hop on into it. Let's just go. Chapter 9, Batgirl / Barbara Gordon, 2:15 a.m. Just think, right now I could be safe and sound at home, but no! Instead, I'm out in the middle of the biggest brawl Gotham's ever seen, dressed in a form-fitting, face-hiding costume with a bright yellow bat in the middle of my chest. Just another typical night as a masked crime fighter in Gotham. At least my dad doesn't know I'm out here. As Gotham City's police commissioner, he's got a pretty good idea of just how dangerous crime fighting in this city can be. And the closest he'll let me get to it is overhauling the police department's filing system from paper to electronic. When I think about all the police reports tonight is going to generate, It's enough to make me want to cry. I'll be typing in data entry for months. That is, if there's still a police department by the time this whole ordeal is over. And if there's still a Gotham. Something really wrong in the city tonight. More wrong than usual. Fortunately, I was still home when Dad called around midnight to tell me to stay in. What's going on? Oh, let me flip the page for you guys. There we go. What's going on? I asked, trying to sound sleepy. The truth was, I was already in my basement, polishing my batarangs, getting ready to hit the streets.
It's not clear yet, but there may have been a breakout at Arkham.
That's gonna be my Commissioner Gordon voice. I probably won't. I probably won't be consistent with it. Who?
We don't know yet, but that's not all. Stonegate Prison seems to have been breached as well. Gotham's a madhouse.
What?
I'm going back in. I wondered about whether to call and risk waking you up, but I just want to make sure you've got all your windows locked and the alarm on.
There was a pause as I debated whether or not to risk trying to get in touch with Batman. If things were as bad as Dad said, then he was probably extremely busy, but he also probably needed help.
Do you have the alarm on?
My dad said on the other end of the line, snapping me out of my reverie. Yeah, tucked in all safe and snug.
Well, keep it that way. And you still have that shotgun I gave you, right? Maybe I should send over an officer to...
I laughed. You're not going to be able to spare any men. Don't worry about me, Dad. I'll be okay.
I know you will, honey.
You worry, I know. It's part of your job as a dad, but I'll be fine.
All right, Miss Judo Black Belt. I love you.
Love you too, Dad. By the time he hung up, I was already in high gear, tearing apart my secret basement crime lab, gathering the equipment I was going to need. Rope, grapnel, a couple of batarangs, an old communicator I took from the Batcave a few years ago. I doubted it still worked, but just in case, and of course, my Batgirl costume. I'm nothing if not practical. If Gotham was exploding, Batman, Robin, and Nightwing, not to mention my dad, were going to need all the help they could get. Even if they didn't want it. I've had a little bit of trouble, I guess you could say, breaking into the boys' club, and breaking in wasn't even my intent to begin with. The first time I went out in costume, I was actually trying to impersonate Batman. Right? Yeah, I'm sitting here like imagining Barbara Gordon with a shotgun. It's a pretty interesting, addition. Especially that it's like just gifted by her dad. Like, I don't know. Do you not have to have paperwork to like track ownership of? I mean, I'm sure he's police commissioner, so they probably went through the proper channels to take care of it. But either way, he just gave her a shotgun. Wants her to blow off heads. The first time I went out in costume, I was actually trying to impersonate Batman. Okay, I know that's how that sounds. 5'5", curvy, flaming red-haired, me fooling anyone into thinking I was Batman. But I had it pretty well planned. One of our local costume crazies, Two-Face, had set up my dad for taking bribes from a local thug named Rupert Thorne. I wanted Batman to make an appearance at the public rally in support of Dad. Just a quick flyby, a show of support. But Batman doesn't really do things on request. And so I made my own Batman costume and planned it so I'd be way up high above the rally and mostly in the shadows. And it totally worked too. The Gotham populace cheered and thought Batman was communicating his belief in the commissioner's innocence. And I was all set to get out of there with no one any the wiser when Robin came up out of nowhere behind me and ripped off the back of my cowl as I started to run away. My hair came tumbling out. By the time I got home, I realized it was a nice alteration to the costume. I shortened the cape to a stylish mid-hip length and added a little color. Yellow boots, gloves, and the aforementioned bat, and voila! Batgirl was born. When I put it that way, I guess it's really Robin's fault for trying to get me out of my clothes. Oh, not the kid who's Robin now. No, I mean the first Robin, who now goes by Nightwing, also known as Dick Grayson. I think he liked the idea of me joining the dynamic duo from the beginning, but Batman wasn't so convinced. He hadn't trained me, didn't have time to train me, didn't want me out on the streets. Best Gordon voice since Hastings. Probably not. You can definitely legally gift someone a registered gun. Happy birthday, Barbara. I know you wanted some makeup or something, but hey, the shotgun was upset. I like how awkwardly she juggles sexual innuendo in her own expository thoughts. Right? It's a bit of fun. Let's pop in some quick notes real quick. If I can get my spreadsheet to load up. There's not a lot quite yet, but there's a couple things worth noting. Oh, well, is it going to? There it goes. Okay. That's all our past chapters. So let's see. Right now, we've got. Well, I guess Barbara Gordon was mentioned in last chapter, so we don't even have any new characters. Wait, no. Rupert Thorne was mentioned. Was Rupert Thorne part of the Shadow of the Bat? Shadow of the Bat events mentioned. I remember Gil Mason, but I'm drawing a blank on Rupert Thorne being involved. Let's insert a couple rows below just in case. Probably something I should have done before starting the stream, but that's okay. Barbara says Shadow of the Bat was the first time she went out in costume, which technically it contradicts Batman Adventures number 12. We've had a little bit of back and forth on whether that one can remain canon, and I'd like to think that it does, just specifically because that's the first comic book appearance of Harley Quinn. It's a whole like Barbara dressed up as a female version of Batman for a Halloween party, and then kind of got roped into a Harley and Ivy nonsense. And let's see. Barbara took a communicator from the Batcave a couple years ago. And then just for good measure, let's put, because James likes having this kind of stuff. Batgirl says she's 5'5". There we go. So there's notes for the first couple pages. Oh. I just watched Mask of the Phantasm last night for the first time. The guy who couldn't stop laughing gave me chills. Oh yeah, dude, Arthur Reeves is like, oof. That whole sequence is a lot. Did I flip the page yet? Okay, I did. Sweet. I don't think it took Batman long to figure out who I really was either. And I don't blame him for not wanting to take his best friend's daughter into the line of fire. But by then, even with Batman saying no, I was hooked. I guess crime fighting was just in my blood. I worked with Batman and Robin on and off, always in an unofficial capacity, never fully enlisted. I even went out on dates once or twice. Okay, exactly twice. With Dick, who was Robin but is now Nightwing. I was in on the secret. I was in on the secrets, part of their world, and then when I started college, I found myself crime fighting less and less. There just weren't enough hours in the day. She was in college. That's
Good job, Robin.
Hey, good job, Robin. Thanks for following. Paradox 10. Danny says this book unintentionally referenced Arkham Knight 12 years early. What part of Arkham Knight did they? Oh, Barbara and Tim. Got it. Yeah. And then when I started college, I found myself crime fighting less and less. There just weren't enough hours in the day. But by the time I had graduated from Gotham State University with honors in the field of computer science, Batman was working solo. It turned out that Robin, Dick, had graduated from college too, and had left Gotham to travel. Batman was alone, and more to the point, though he never admitted it, I think he was... Oh my god. This book can't even be consistent with, like, its own, like, timeline. So, like, a couple chapters ago, we got them saying that Dick was 8 when, like, the events of the Robin's Reckoning flashback happened. And then last chapter, they said Gordon had only been in Gotham for 12 years at this point. So now that would mean Dick would be 20 because Gordon was there during the Robin's Reckoning flashback. So Dick would be 20, which would mean that, you know, like if we go by the lost years having 2 years in between things, then he would have been 18 when he left Batman. But they just said he graduated college. There's gonna be a lot of notes to leave, isn't there? Paradox. Oh, why didn't I know you guys have a Twitch? I love all the YouTube videos you make. I've been missing out. Yeah, I mean we've been doing this for like 10 weeks now, I think. So it's still a relatively new thing. James goes live on Tuesday with Justice League Adventures canonicity breakdowns. Ted typically takes Wednesdays for the for playing DCAU video games, and then Thursdays, you know, is my day because it's Thursday, and I've just been reading Batman: Rise of Sin Tzu. And once we got like 5 more weeks of this, and then we'll switch books, and we could talk about whatever book we'll switch to at that time. Where was I though? Let's see. And had left Gotham to travel. Batman was alone, and more to the point, though he never admitted it, I think he was lonely. He began to let me work with him in a more official capacity. Eventually, he even let me into the Batcave. Was that like being drafted? We never talked about my new role, but I could tell he was beginning to trust me. Now I'm sort of the resident expert on the Bat computer, and Batman grants me free access to most of his domain, but he'll still send me home when he thinks the risk is too great. He's obviously wholly unwilling to have my blood on his hands. I find his domineering attitude kind of frustrating sometimes, but Dick assures me that's just the way it goes, and he should know. He's been with Batman since the beginning, the closest thing the Dark Knight has to a son, the most loyal soldier. I'm remembering all of this as I climb up my building fire escape, and then I'm on the rooftop, looking out at the lights of the city. A quick glance is enough to tell me that Dad was right as usual. The place looks like hell on earth. Gotham's never exactly been a Garden of Eden, not for a couple 100 years, at the very least, and probably not since the Miyagini started building huts here back in the 1500s. But this is nuts. Lights are there that shouldn't be. A bonfire in the middle of Robinson Park, and no lights where they should be. All 89 floors of the Levins building are dark. Gunshots are going off like firecrackers, and the night is punctuated every few minutes by screams of terror or yells of hate. In other words, standard Tuesday night Gotham City fare times bazillion. I take out the grapnel gun and stare at it. How had it come to this? What was I thinking? I was about to shoot out a line with enough force to send the grapnel a quarter mile, which is to say, enough power to drive it through the chest of a very large man, if one so chose or had poor aim. Hoping the grapnel was secured successfully to a gargoyle or outcropping on some adjacent building, and then I'd jump out into space. I'd allow my body to plummet far enough to build up enough momentum to take me across the street and up a few stories higher than my present location, while making sure I didn't reach a sufficient speed that the G-force would cause my arms to be ripped out of their sockets. Once upon a time, I was a regular girl. I had 2 loving parents, a happy home, and plenty of friends. Then Mom died, and Dad and I were left to fend for ourselves. He did the best he could, all things considered. I thought I'd turn out fairly well. Okay, so what do we got here? We got a couple things that kind of set me off. Let's see. Barbara says she's been on exactly 2 dates with Dick. Double check. Could contradict Batman Adventures issues. I'm trying to think what 2 dates has she been on in like in the cartoons at least. I know she went on that date for Sub-Zero. And I guess wasn't there a date like around his graduation or whatever where he kind of left and was like, "Man, fuck Batman." Then there was, let's see, Barbara says she did less crime fighting when she started college. But she was already in college when she became Batgirl. Is this summer break, maybe? And then we had the whole book's internal timeline. It doesn't add up. Nightwing would be 20 now. So about 18. Well, no, he'd be even younger. Cause Tim says he's been, Robin for about a year. And then what was there? There was a mention of the Garden of Eden, which I know like the Fertile Crescent is a real thing, but I think like technically Garden of Eden I feel like qualifies as pop culture in the same way that like, any other religious text would be considered pop culture. The Odyssey and shit like that. Let's see. Barbara suggests that it's Tuesday. I put a space in Barbara for some reason. That's fine. And then what would we have? Let's see. The Miyagi people started building huts here back in the 1500s. I'm curious about Miyagini. Like, what is? It sounds like a familiar. Okay, it's a thing. Oh, that's interesting. But in the book, they spell it Miyagini, Gini. But apparently in other stuff, like the Arkham games, it's Gani. And I guess it's an island like right off the side of Gotham. So I guess it's just another nationality that they made up for DC lore. Let's see. The Miyagani, otherwise known as the Bat People, and previously known as the Deer People, are a tribe of Native Americans who based their lifestyle around bats, supposedly as a result of feats by a man of bats, and eventually had descendants that gave birth to that very man. Wait. So Batman is Native American? I mean, like, I would assume maybe in the same way that, like, you know, Elizabeth Warren is Native American, where it's a very small percentage. But that's interesting. That's not something that I had ever heard. And then let's see, we got for locations, we got mentions of Robinson Park, and let's see, the Levins. Yeah, the Levins building, which I assume is a reference to Gotham Adventures artist Tim Levins, who James has befriended as of late. So that's a thing. I think that's all for those pages. So let's go ahead and flip to the next one. Oh, yep, there you go. Someone got on it first in the chat about the Miyagani. Don't say Tim says he's been robbing for about a year to James right now. Yeah, I mean we've been discussing like the kind of similarities between the timeline in this and the timeline in Batman: The Adventures Continues. It's kind of weird. They're from Batman the Cult, a famous story introduced Deacon Blackfire. I think they mean Man-Bat, not Batman. I could be... Huh. That's possible. Let me see. 9 appearances of Miyagani. The Flash Volume 3. Batman: The Return of Bruce Wayne. Batman the Cult. You would think that, like, if they that on the wiki, they would definitely, like, hyperlink it to whichever man of the bat they're talking about. But that's, I guess, besides the point. Oh, yeah, I forgot to put... We got mention of Barbara's mom. Who is dead. They never really tab. They never really like go into her mom at all, at least in the you know, the shows. So one could imagine that they were divorced, but let's see, where was I? Let's see. I thought I'd turned out fairly well, so I decided not to jump. I dive instead. And as the lights of the city rapidly turn into a blur, and the force of the wind rushing up at me causes my eyes to water, and the street below begins to resemble some sort of urban impressionist painting before I reach the nadir of my line's arc, my body instantly remembers its training. honed by years of practice and instinctively goes with the centrifugal force so that I am whooshing away from the street below. And as at the apex of my swing, I push the button that will release the grapnel and hang weightless for a fraction of a second before beginning to fall to the rooftop, which had previously been across the street and is now just 10 feet below me. I can't help but wonder, how had I ever given this up? Filled with delight at my rediscovery, I quickly make my way to the Levins building. It isn't the tallest building in Gotham, but it's one of them, and it's close. Moreover, its lack of lights would help me with my recon. The dearth of any troublesome glare to contend with would improve visibility considerably, and allow me to get a better feel for the area and decide where I should concentrate first. I'm not there more than 2 minutes before I spot someone entering the Gotham City Police Headquarters, aka Dad's office. Nothing unusual there. People, mainly cops, flood in and out around the clock, even at this time of night. Of course, they all use doors. This guy is going in a window on the top floor. 90 seconds later, I enter through the same window, which he has so thoughtfully left open. If I have anything to say about it, he's not going to be making the quick escape he's planned for, and I am going to have something to say about it. The room takes up the entire top floor and is filled with computers, filing cabinets, and shelves of old records that I haven't had time to transfer. The infiltrator is no more than 15 feet away. It's completely dark and utterly silent. The only sounds audible are a few street noises drifting up from the avenue through the still open window. I stand completely still and wait for the break-in artist to move. Finally, he does. I hear a page turn, so quietly that if I'd been breathing, I'd have missed it. Concentrating on not pushing air in front of me as I move, I make my way towards him until I'm within 18 inches of his back. He doesn't even twitch. Damn, bro. He doesn't even twitch. The Man of the Bat might be the Bruce that got sent back in time due to Final Crisis. I'm not positive on that, though. If that's the case, then it's obviously not canon to the DCAU until that becomes a plot point of the next DCAU movie. But we twitch. Exactly. That's what we're here doing. Which, by the way, since there are a couple of new people in here today, for some reason, my computer likes to stop the Twitch stream at random points and then reboot it up. So if that happens at any point, just refresh the page. It doesn't mean I'm done. It just means that my computer is malfunctioning. We've tried lowering the bitrate of the stream, hoping that maybe that will stop that from happening. But it's not a for sure science. So if I just go missing and it doesn't seem like I signed off, that is why. Just refresh your screen and I'll be back within a couple minutes. Concentrating on not pushing air in front of me as I move. He doesn't even twitch. Okay, yeah. When do you develop asthma? Nightwing asks casually. I drop and balance myself on one hand, then sweep his feet out from underneath him with my legs. He goes over backwards, but before any part of him can even touch the floor, he turns his fall into a backflip and lands in a crouch behind me. He falls on top of me immediately and pins me to the floor face first. He outweighs me by at least 60 pounds. There's nothing I can do. I relax. As soon as he feels my muscles release, he begins to take some of his weight off of me. Instantly, I roll over and turn on my flashlight. He turns his head to the side and throws up his hands. "What are you, crazy?" he asks. I might have night. I think they got the words backwards. I have my night vision activated. I laugh. How did rule number 1 go again? Hold on, don't tell me. It'll come. Expect the something. Okay. really quick. Let's see, we got Gotham City Police Headquarters was mentioned. So we're going to pop that into locations. And then Nightwing is at least 60 pounds heavier than Batgirl. And now it's time to turn the page. I'm stuck at the place with crappier internet today. Had to go back home for a few days for my birthday. Well, happy birthday or late birthday, whichever, or upcoming birthday. So the stream keeps lagging for me, so I keep thinking that we're at the stream crash moment every couple of minutes. Not fun. I am getting a notice that skipped frames detected 15% over last 2 minutes a few seconds ago. So it is possible that the crash might be coming up. Especially since, there it goes. The page wasn't loading. Yeah, Nightwing laughs. Expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected isn't supposed to apply to your supposed allies trying to do permanent damage to your retinas. Oh, why did it zoom in like that? Zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Oh, please, I answer. That was barely enough to blind you for more than, say, 10 or 15 minutes. Your ponytail, on the other hand, has almost certainly scarred me for life. Nightwing usually wears his hair long and down for whatever reason. For whatever reason, he tied it back to read the records. You don't like? He asks, pretending to be wounded. I think it makes me look manly. I nod. It does help in that regard. Add a purse and some high heels and you'll complete the look. He grins. I didn't know you noticed me that way. Shall we plan a shopping excursion? Make a day of it, Bat-Girlfriend? My birthday was on Tuesday, so I was dealing with this same shit for James too. Big oof. But thank you for the belated birthday wishes anyway. You are welcome for them, Danny. We've got very, very close birthdays. I shake my head. Nothing seems to faze this guy. I know it isn't true. Plenty gets to him, but little that comes from anyone but Batman. Of course, it's a bit easier to be unflappable when you're the best-looking, smartest, most talented guy in Gotham, heir to the richest man in town, and capable of performing physical feats that would stun a professional acrobat, which Dick Grayson had been at age 3. I suddenly realize that my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, my heart is beating faster already, vomit on his sweater's mom's spaghetti than it did when I jumped off that building 10 minutes earlier. This guy. So what you looking for? Oh, wait. That's my Nightwing voice, but that's Barbara saying it. Okay, I am now all in for Batgirl and our shared hatred of man buns. I don't think she's specifically talking about a man bun, but I can't imagine she'd be fond of them either, especially in the early 2000s. It'd be like a fish out of water for her. So what you looking for? I ask finally, trying to keep my voice steady. Nightwing grins at me again. I hate him, or at least I try to. What I'd find, actually, he answers, staring into my eyes in that way he has that no one else in the world has. It'd never work, I remind myself. Never, ever, ever, so stop even thinking about it. True, but I begin to argue until I realize that he is still staring at me and that I haven't said anything yet. For a moment, I am insanely grateful that he is wearing his black face mask. If I'd been able to see the sun-warmed dark blue of his eyes, I think I'd have That's interesting. So I guess it's canonical that that like the masks have some kind of eye covering. How does he see out of it? I don't know. I try to remember what he'd said, and then pretend he'd been talking about the files. Okay, former boy wonder, what did you find? Nightwing gazes at me for what seems like an hour, giving me way too much time to take in the glossy sheen of his black hair and the high cut of his cheekbones, and then suddenly he becomes all business. An address! Batman asked me to find files belonging to a shrink who works for the government. He said I'd understand what he wanted as soon as I figured out who my mark was, and he was right. My guy's assigned to an international terrorist named Sin Tzu. So we have to assume that's who's behind the assault tonight. I just found the psychiatrist's home address and a lead on which branch of the CBI he works for. So I figured I'd run by his office and see if I can't dig up Sin Tzu's psych eval. Knowing those guys, it's probably worthless, but you never know. Won't the CBI be heavily guarded? I ask. I sure hope so, Nightwing answers, grinning again. He takes his work very seriously, but he also seems to enjoy it more than your average costume vigilante. I'm with him there. I think it's a blast. So these psychiatric files will help Batman profile his enemy? Good. What's he doing now? Clayface has taken over Gotham Chemical and is threatening to contaminate this whole city with Renew You. Batman went off to stop him, but here's the thing. About 3 seconds after Clayface went down, your dad got a tip about a weapon of mass destruction coming into Gotham Harbor. So we got a couple things. Right, we got a mention of the CBI, which is I don't specifically know what the CBI is. Let's Google that. Probably something Bureau Investigation. California Bureau of Why? Why California? They're not moving Gotham to California in this book, are they? Hold on, there's a couple different. California Bureau of Investigation. Central Bank of Iceland, Central Bank of India, Central Bank of Iran, Central Bank of Iraq, Central Bank of Ireland. Central Bureau of Investigation. That's a federal agency of India. Charles Babbage Institute in Minnesota. I mean, I suppose maybe that Sin Tzu came from India, but I don't think that's right. And then we also got mentioned that Dick was a professional trapeze artist at the age of 3. Is that what? Where did that go? Oh, I'm on the wrong page. That's why. Professional acrobat. Okay, so I think that's most of what we got on those pages. Let's flip this page here. There we go. A weapon of mass destruction? Like a nuclear device? Maybe. Or maybe a chemical bomb, or some sort of germ warfare. It could be anything. Or nothing, for that matter. Though Batman doesn't think Sin Tzu would bluff. The ship has probably already docked by now, so the longer it takes Batman to get through Gotham to the docks, the less time he has to find the weapon before it's too late. Which docks? I ask, a note of panic in my voice. Hopefully it was Port Adams, which was a reasonable size, or Miller Harbor, just not the Dixon docks. He answers gravely. That wasn't a very grave voice of mine, but that's okay. They cover the entire west side of South Island. But we don't know which pier or which ship. Shouldn't you be there looking? I asked, alarmed. That was my thought when I heard the news, but Batman's orders were very clear. He says we have to neutralize from the top down, which means finding Sin Tzu himself. And right now, Sin Tzu's psychiatrist is our best lead for that. So that's the mission objective Batman wants me to cover. Okay, I say, running the possibilities through in my head. In my mind, I was already at the docks, looking for likely hiding places. But that doesn't mean I can't head down there. What? I ask, finally realizing he's looking at me sort of funny. Nothing, he says, smiling in a way unlike his previous grins. This one was more thoughtful, tender almost. The way you kind of check out when something really grabs your attention. It's just been a while since I've seen that, that's all. He pauses, then adds, I guess I've really missed it. He hesitates again, then says almost shyly, I guess I really missed you. I laugh, waiting for the punchline. Yeah, like a case of Lyme disease that keeps coming back, right? Exactly. He laughs too, then shakes his head, his voice softening again, like a caress. No, dummy, I mean it. You haven't been around much, and I really have, missed you. I smile at him, swallowing. Ugh. I feel like I'm getting cat hair on my nose from somewhere. Starting to itch up a lot. I smile at him, swallowing. I hadn't forgotten how unexpectedly sweet he could be sometimes. But it is still startling. Of course, he has no idea that his light banter is killing me. So I do the thing I can do. I give it right back. Which explains why you left Gotham for a year. You don't call, you don't write, and here you are expecting me to fall into your arms once again. Okay, so they contradict Lost Years right there. Well, he says, I don't really recall that you ever actually fell into my arms before, except for that one time the Riddler managed to knock you off of Parabec Towers. And I wouldn't say I was exactly expecting it, but I've thought about it. He lets his easy smile slowly heat up into a full wattage grin. And I've heard worse ideas. I shake my head at him. For someone so nice and so brilliant, he can sure be obtuse sometimes. Well, two can play at that game. Uh-huh. Don't we have a few lunatics to stop first? He nods good-naturedly, but I think I see a shift in his jaw. And for the first time, I wonder if maybe, just maybe, behind all the playful give and take, he is serious. I half start to say something, but he's already turned away. Idiot! 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 I yell to myself, not sure to whom I'm referring. We head for the window. He steps back and allows me to go first, gesturing in an exaggeratedly gallant way. I curtsy in response, which draws a surprised laugh from him. As I pass him, his hand lightly brushes my hip. For the first time in my life, I almost swoon, as much from the adrenaline rush I receive whenever we touch, as from the knowledge that when a guy controls his every movement the way this one does, a brief, gentle, accidental contact is no accident. Okay, so what do we got? We got a couple mentions of different docks. Let's see. So we already got Port Adams and Dixon docks mentioned in last, and Miller Harbor. What about South Island? Did we get South Island? Doesn't look like it. So South Island's a new location for us. Dick left Gotham for a year. As in the timeline notes, but also in the non-canon notes. Dick only left Gotham for 1 year instead of the 2+ shown in the Lost Years. that's basically it for that. They were basically just flirting the rest of the time. So let's flip the page. This is starting to read like a tawdry romance. Yeah. Because, girls only be thinking about one thing, and it's disgusting. Does the Batgirl costume even have a bodice to rip? I don't know. I don't know. I'm heading for the docks, I say quietly over my shoulder. Behind me, Nightwing nods. I feel safer already, he smiles, and then I'm on my way towards the docks and he's gone, off to search for our enemy's confidant. It's impossible not to worry about Dad on my way over. The whole city, really, but for me, that tends to crystallize down to just Dad, who I know is always on the front lines of the action. I have a moment of panic and frustration, worrying over him and everybody else in Gotham, and wondering what I can do. And then I realize that there is no greater service I can perform than working for Batman, under direct orders or not, and that's what I have to concentrate on. So now I'm perched on a water tower at the edge of the docks, looking at the hundreds of ships, any one of which could take an entire day for one person to search. Which one holds the big surprise? And what exactly is the big surprise? If I knew that, maybe figuring out which ship was the lucky winner would be easier. That was a joke because a euphemism for romance novels is bodice rippers, because women always seem to. I mean, yeah, I figured it was a joke, but I didn't get the full range of that. My grandma was like huge into those romance smut novels, so like I should have got it, but she always tried to tell me that they weren't smut and were all historically accurate, but she had like bookshelves and bookshelves and bookshelves and bookshelves of them, so I never believed that. But she would go through like 2 or 3 of them a day. Did you hear the one about the joke that got funnier the more it was explained? No, you'll have to explain that one to me later. Let's see. Yeah, and if they just held up a sign saying weapon of mass destruction here, that'd help too. Now wouldn't it? Time to stop wishing I had a magic 8-ball and get to work. I slow my heart rate down to 50 beats a minute and open all my senses. I remember Dick teaching me this back when he was still Robin, and my pulse starts to race again. Down, girl, I remind myself. You've got a job to do. I begin to get my heart rate back under control, but not before remembering that casual brush and deciding that maybe, just maybe, he felt the same way. Was that really possible? Okay, hundreds of enormous ships, 3 dock night watchmen, 18 visible crew members from my position. What doesn't belong here? What's missing? What does belong here but isn't? I've already swiped the manifest for each of the ships from the dock's office. One more thing I'd pick up from Nightwing and have them memorized. None of the Bat guys had to teach me to do that. I happen to be blessed with an eidetic memory, photographic memory in layman's terms. One glance at something and I've memorized it for life. Now I just have to let my subconscious do the work and hope it filters fast enough. Less than 2% of all ships coming into this country get inspected. There are simply way too many to do otherwise, so the chances that the normal procedures will nail this one are minuscule. If it's going to happen, it's up to me. One by one, my brain matches up the memorized manifest to the ships. So far, everything is copacetic. I move farther north up the docks, now running across the warehouse rooftops adjacent to the piers. My heart seems more aware of the passage of time than I would like, and starts to speed up again. I force myself to calm back down and just look without looking. It'll come eventually. I head a bit farther north. Something about one of the ships feels wrong. It is quite a way farther down the dock. At number 47. I make my way towards it, keeping to the shadows. Not an easy thing to do when a large percentage of your costume is yellow. What had I been thinking? Of course Nightwing didn't seem to mind. Not really a lot to add from those pages, so let's go to the next. I hate the way my brain works sometimes. The reference to wardrobe malfunctions resulted in me imagining Batgirl as Janet Jackson, and then it extended to Nightwing being Michael Jackson. I mean, yeah, the wardrobe malfunction thing had. I mean, you know, that's the most commonly. That's definitely the most common usage of that term, I think. But Nightwing being Michael Jackson, I'm about it. Except for, like, you know, the incest that would imply. But let's not even go there, because now you're putting your brain things on me, Danny. Your brain things, your medulla oblongata, they're on top of me. Knock it off, I say, slapping myself mentally. By now, I'm on one of the freighters opposite of the suspicious one. But what about it makes it suspicious? Nothing obvious leaps out at me. Was I wrong? Had I jumped to an erroneous conclusion? Let's see. There are several crew members on board walking around slowly. Some of the other ships had none. Others had even more than this one. Nothing concrete there. It is flying a French flag, yet the few words I'd heard the crew members speak were certainly not French. Again, nothing unusual. Shipping companies register their ships with whatever country has the best insurance rates and policies at the point in time, regardless of the owner's nationalities or residences. And the nationality of the crew has equally little to do with the nationality of the owner. The crew, I realize, is speaking Kuraki. Okay, this is a little bit odd. Without normalized relations with Kurak, there wasn't a whole lot of trade between our two countries, but it also isn't unknown to happen. So, in and of itself, nothing conclusive. Come on, there's gotta be something there. You're just not seeing it. Or more accurately, you already saw it. You just don't know what it is you saw. Now figure it out. Alright, the ship's manifest says it's carrying textiles, rugs and sweaters mainly, and that's consistent with a Kuraki crew, as well as its port of origin, Cairo. So what's making me jumpy? Two things I realize suddenly. First of all, now that I'm closer, I notice that there aren't an unusual number of crewmen walking around on deck, but I sure am seeing an unusually large number of them peering out from here and there. Far, far more than is normal for 2 in the morning. And the second thing is that the ship is sitting much lower in the water than it should be. The displacement for a ship this size is considerable. Add a full cargo of textiles and it's even larger. This one, however, is riding way too low in the water. There is something more than textiles in there. What are you doing here? My blood goes cold. It's as if every muscle in my body instantly cramps. My pulse doubles immediately. My mouth goes dry. I force myself to speak. I can just barely hear the tremble in my voice. Unfortunately, I'm sure he does. Trying to stop a madman from destroying Gotham, and how are you? Having thus delivered this devastating bon mot, I'm able to glance casually over my shoulder. What I see makes my heart stop for a moment. It's only a moment, but it seems like an age. It doesn't matter that I've seen him hundreds of times. It doesn't matter that I've seen him bleed, that I know he's human. It doesn't matter that I even know his secret identity. Not who he is, mind you, but who he sometimes pretends to be during the day, and where he lives and how he became what he is today. No matter how much I try, none of that matters. Because when you're in his presence, you have a hard time thinking of anything but, oh wow, where did he come from? I sure hope he doesn't hurt me. He's not actually that tall, or somewhere around 6'3", give or take an inch. And he's not that big per se, usually around 225. except that he's huge. He's somehow bigger than you would have thought a human being could get. It's utterly inexplicable. It's like trying to wrap your head around the actual size and scope of the universe, and then trying to imagine that it's still expanding, and then trying to place yourself in relation to something of that magnitude. Okay, so we got a couple interesting things here. You thought villain was Sin Tzu, but it's me. Did a heckin' bamboozle. Excellent. Your corruption process has begun. So we got a couple interesting things here. We got oh, that's not the right doc. Oh. Let's see. We got mentions of France, Karak, and Cairo. Oh, I hit enter instead of shift enter. Or control enter, I should say. Which, Karak was like a huge thing in Young Justice, yeah? I don't think we ever got Karak in the DCAU. I was like halfway expecting them to like be like, also there's a Kasnian ship. Yeah, there's no... This might be the first Karak mentioned in the DCAU. And then we got further confirmation that Batman's 6'3". And about 225 pounds. Yeah, see, I don't know if it includes the ears or not. I know, like, one of the earliest DCAU Batman profiles we got in, like, the Superman Batman magazine said he was 6'2". So maybe, like, the 6'3" that we see in Justice League in Wild Cards could be a result of, you know, the taller ears. Especially since I want to say that was, you know, that was put up by Joker, who wouldn't know, you know, his height outside of costume. Wait, I already flipped the page, didn't I? No, I didn't. Okay. Great, so that is where we are. Tight. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages left. Batman knocks out all perspective.
How many aboard?
And that's another thing. His voice is like broken glass and sand that a heavy boot is crushing against concrete. It's usually soft, but it's always carries exactly as far as he wants it to. And it's as clear as crystal and as sharp as a scalpel. It's not a fun thing to hear coming from behind you. I've counted 12 so far. Hey, I think. He trusts my intelligence report. Cool.
Have you determined what's inside?
Not yet, I admit. But I noticed the water displacement and
it didn't match up with the cargo listed on the manifest.
Unbelievable. Lucky guess, I say. And then more sulkily than I mean to, how did you figure out which one it was? He cocks his head slightly to one side and then shakes it.
I just got here. I'm following your lead on this one.
Oh! I nod. What I was thinking was, you mean I found the ship with the weapon of mass destruction all by myself? And if not for my being here, you'd still be looking for it? Really? For real? How cool is that?
Thank you for your help, Miss Gordon.
He says.
You've saved me a great deal of time. Now, go home.
I finally turn all the way around. Now wait, there are at least a dozen guys on there, and maybe 3 times that number. You're going to need me to... He's gone. Which at least gives me a chance to catch my breath. Batman is a good guy, a hero, the best chance we've got of surviving the night. And yet he's utterly terrifying, like everything dark and unpredictable about the city personified and set loose and arbitrarily on your side. A moment later, I notice that 2 of the crew members up top are no longer present. The final crewman is still walking around slowly, and then he isn't. A shadow moves across his body, as though a cloud were crossing the full moon, and he simply goes limp. But he doesn't hit the deck. He starts to collapse as though all the bones have instantly vanished from his body, and he falls backwards as if a gale force wind has blown the sack of skin, which had seconds earlier been a massive sailor, into a dark corner where it wouldn't be noticed for hours. I wait. A minute later, all but one of the few lights on board have been extinguished. Finally, after 3 minutes, I hear a shriek coming from the lighted room near the top. I know how the screamer feels. I'd been there, only I'd known that Batman wouldn't hurt me. I'd known that, in fact, he wouldn't hesitate to give his life to save me. Yet every time he snuck up on me in the dark, I felt like screaming, and the people on that ship had no such luck. Batman had no problem at all about hurting the people guarding Sin Tzu's weapon of mass destruction. There is the sound of shattering glass, running feet, and gunshots. More screams, a snapping sound, a few grunts as air is expelled from lungs that will gasp uselessly for an eternal 15 seconds before they begin to work. Again. 2 more gunshots. Someone begging for mercy in Karaki. A soft thud, and then silence. Flip the page. Boom, 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 boom. There it goes. I realize I am shaking. I'd witnessed this kind of scene before, but there are some things you just never get used to. When I see a dark shape glide across the deck and toss something large and orange over the side, I understand why I'd heard the scream so close by. Among his other attributes, Batman's practical. He wanted to get as many near the top as possible, so he wouldn't have far to move them. Why he is tossing them overboard is still a mystery. However, why he is tossing them overboard is still a mystery, however. So I decide to do a little detective work. As I learned in my one college journalism class, nothing beats going right to the source. I make my way across to the freighter, stepping over the unconscious bodies, and see him tossing another crew member off the side. He'd thoughtfully put a life jacket on each of them first. What are you doing? Why not just keep them on board?
Because I don't want them waking up in the Batcave.
My mouth falls open and I take a step back. You what? He tosses another pair over.
I don't know what's on this ship, and I can't risk it going off here before I find out the entire city could be contaminated for decades for all I know. In the cave, the city will be shielded by 100 feet of sheer rock. The risk is minimal.
Except to yourself, I nearly shout. For the first time, Batman stops and looks me in the eyes.
Yes?
He asks, clearly implying, and what's your point? Would you prefer I risk others? I turn away, gritting my teeth. Of course that wasn't what I meant. I know as well as anyone the risks we take, especially him. I grab one of the unconscious sailors, slipping a life jacket on him. Not easy to do with 250 unconscious pounds. Drag him up and over to the railing, then tip him over. He hits with a satisfying splash and immediately begins to sputter and then curse in Karaki. My Karaki's a bit rusty, but I more than get the gist. Batman and I each dump several more overboard. I lose count, but I'm sure there were at least 19, and then he disappears. I have just noticed when he reappears behind me like an afterthought.
Thank you for finding the ship,
he says darkly, staring at me hard. There is no mistaking that what he means is go home right now. Still, I appreciate his efforts to couch it in more gracious terms. Nightwing deployed me, I offer, wondering if that will make any difference to him.
Get clear.
He nods, and then he is gone again. Good luck, I whisper. A minute later, the deck begins to hum. Shortly after that, the ship begins to move. I run to the edge, and just as far as I can, I just make the dock. I stand there, catching my breath, watching the freighter slowly get smaller. One word keeps going through my head. Incredible. I am not entirely sure to what or to whom it refers. I gradually become aware of the sounds. I gradually become aware of the sounds of wet clothing rustling, accompanied by the spitting of water. The sailors are gradually making their way up onto the dock. As the first crewman stands up, I step out of the shadows. His eyes get very large, his face gets very red, and he says something extremely uncharitable in Karaki about my family history and my extracurricular activities. He pulls a very large knife out of his pocket and runs towards me. He must have 7 inches and 150 pounds on me. Flip the page. There we go. It isn't even close. As he tries to impale me on his dagger, I step back, placing my weight on my right foot. I grab his right wrist with my right hand, place my left hand on his right elbow, and push up, over, and then down towards the ground. The guy has no sense of balance. He goes down like a sack of wet crushed bricks. As he does, a very clear snap can be heard. I've never experienced it, but I understand that having a broken elbow is extremely painful. It must be, because he can't even scream. He just lies on the ground, his mouth open, his eyes practically falling out of his head, breathing slowly but very, very hard. I don't have time to admire my work, though, because 2 more are coming towards me, and I can hear others on their way. 1 down, at least 18 to go. I'd be going home, just like Batman had oh so politely requested, but not for a while, it seemed. No one in Batman's army would ever surrender the field. And that's the end of Batgirl's chapter. As you can see, the next chapter for next week is we're going to be going back into Sin Tzu in chapter 10 and see what he is up to throughout the night. Since I did start the little timelining thing last week, I think we can probably add a couple things to it here. Let me kind of get this looking a little better. Before that, though, so let's see. We got Barbara took a communicator from the Batcave a couple of years ago. I don't know. Maybe like circa 2 years before Sin Tzu, we would say. And then what else do we have? Barbara suggests that it's a Tuesday. The Miyagini people. I'm not going to worry with that because there's like a couple other ancient historical things that happen that aren't as pertinent to at least the continuity aspect of this. Dick was a professional acrobat at the age of 3. Where is... So that would be like circa 17 years. Then we've got, is the only thing left. Dick left Gotham for a year. Okay. So we'd have to say that it would be. I'm trying to think. If okay, so around here is when, you know, we would say Robin likely, or Tim likely became Robin. So I think this would also be a circa 2 years before Sin Tzu thing, perhaps. Oh, I didn't bold it. That's fine. College graduate Dick Grayson leaves Gotham for a year. So my whole issue with the timeline of things so far is, you know, obviously this is a contradictory to Lost Years. Right. And then he would be, you know, 2 years before Sin Tzu, he would be about 18. And that doesn't make sense to me, because, you know, we've got, you know, this whole thing. Jim Gordon transfers to Gotham City Police Department 12 years before Sin Tzu. Like, that's 100% confirmed, is that's 12 years before Sin Tzu. And so the earliest that the Robin's Reckoning flashbacks could be would also be 12 years before Sin Tzu. And they say that he was 8 years old there. Right? So it ends up, like, we get into the Batman the Animated Series era around here somewhere, and it's like Dick is still 14 years old. So that's my biggest, like, complaint with the continuity right now. And it just, I think we can just assume it's an editorial mistake that wasn't caught, especially since they, you know, they say they still. Oh, what happened there? Oh, let me. There we go. They still suggest that, like, Dick was a college graduate when he left. Right? So, like, it's probably just an editorial mistake, and, like, we can gloss over it somehow, but, like, I don't like acting like what's on the page isn't what's on the page. It's a messy hybrid of post-crisis Bat canon and DCAU canon. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm getting here. I mean, like, you know, I don't know much about the comic canon specifically. But it's a bit of a goof, a gaff. I don't know like how well y'all can see this because of, you know, it not being like a full screen thing. I could try to zoom, I suppose. Boom. It's so big. But yeah, so, like, this is what we're looking at right now. We still haven't, like, confirmed a year that you know, that Sin Tzu would happen. But, like, okay, so another thing, right, is, like, we're told almost 9 years ago, so about 8 years ago, before Sin Tzu, you know, Batman and Robin encounter Two-Face. But if that's 8 years before Sin Tzu, and Dick was an 8-year-old 12 years before Sin Tzu, that would mean he is 12 here, 8 years before Sin Tzu. So a 12-year-old Robin, you know, interacting with Two-Face when, like, Two-Face was, like, you know, he came up during the DCAU, like, during the Batman the Animated Series era. I guess, like, technically Robin isn't in that episode. So, like, if we want to ignore all of the, you know, all of the Two-Face timelining work that we've done before, we could move that to, like, before the main section of Batman the Animated Series. Say it's, like, within the 10 years we don't know about. But then we would also have to move, Pretty Poison. We would have to move On Leather Wings, right? Because Harvey Dent is still Harvey Dent in both of those things. We may have to move Christmas with the Joker, because the Joker has, like, a Harvey Dent cardboard cutout in his audience, as if Harvey is still, you know, not Two-Face yet. But if we move that back, then we also have to, like, deal with the repercussions that puts on the 7 years ago this very night from Beware the Creeper. So, like, a lot of this just doesn't make sense, right? I want to try to, and like, there's other like weird canon stuff other than just the timeline. But I would like to try to like, go through the video game cutscenes and see how much it lines up with this story, and maybe, you know, we could find some kind of, like, weird mishmash that works. I would assume that the video game itself holds higher continuity than the novelization. Right? Because, like, we've got the voice actors back. We've got, like, the actual character models are there. All that kind of stuff. I mean, not all the voice actors are back. Scott Melville ended up doing Robin for that game. But, you know, it is what it is. So maybe we could just say, you know, end up saying that the game works, and then, like, just kind of adopt bits and pieces of the novel while saying that the novel itself isn't canon. But it's you know, where would you draw the line is the thing. But yeah, that's basically it for today. We're coming back next week. James will be on, I think, Justice League Adventures number 11 on Tuesday. Ted will be coming back with the super. I believe he's doing the Superman animated series game on Game Boy, and then I'll be back with Sin Tzu Chapter 10. You know, where we come back to Sin Tzu. Apparently, all the Sin Tzu chapters were written by Flint and Dill, whereas I think the rest of it was written by Devin Grayson. I think they just kind of wanted to, like, have a different voice for Sin Tzu, whereas, like, Devin Grayson, I guess, probably was just like, yeah, I'm familiar with the Bat family characters. Like, yeah, I'll do that. I think Flint Dill was responsible for the, if I remember correctly, was responsible for writing the game itself. I don't know. But if they were the one that was writing the game, it would make sense for them to, you know, write the Sin Tzu chapters, because then they would have been the only one to have really written Sin Tzu before. Flint Dill. Okay, no, that's just the novelization. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I got that impression from. But anyway, yeah, that's it for the day. I haven't eaten anything yet, so I'm going to go hop off, make lunch. I love you guys. I will see y'all next week. Hopefully. We'll. Oh, wait, I'll see you guys on Sunday, actually. Or you'll see me. Our video this week is going to be about lost episodes from Batman the Animated Series. I've got, a lot of notes on that, and so it's going to end up being a series of videos rather than just one, because we're kind of not sure about doing, videos longer than, 20 to 30 minutes, because sometimes we get penalized on that. So first chapter of Lost Episodes coming up this Sunday, and then the live stream schedule next week. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm gonna go eat lunch. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week. I guess try to enjoy your 4th of July weekend, but it's gonna hit a little different this year. With everything that's going on. But I suppose that's a topic for another time. I love you guys. Mwah.